right, so everybody, welcome to this month's installment and demo of Sumo Logic software delivery optimization. So I'm going to go through about 5-6 minutes of slides, and then we'll get right into the product itself, so you can see the different dashboards and metrics and analytics that we're able to provide users as they look into how their organizations and teams are doing from a software delivery perspective. So when you look at software development and delivery in any organization, there's really 4 big challenges that teams face as they're trying to get good quality code out the door to their users in a velocity that makes sense to them and to their users. First of all, it's really just keeping it secure, right? You want to build security into the pipeline. That way, if there's any bad actors within the organization, they won't be able to change the code on you. But also, you want to make sure that as you're deploying code and into the software for users, that you want to make sure that it's secure enough where it's not going to cause any issues, won't cause any security breaches that could put your users and customers in harm's way. Second thing is quality, right? As you continue to improve the product over time, you want to make sure that those improvements that are getting deployed aren't breaking other things within the product itself, right? Causing a poor user experience. So you want to make sure that as you're improving the product, you want to maintain a level of quality that is acceptable both to, again, you and your team in the way you view it, but also making sure that you're providing a great user experience so that you don't lose customers in the end. And then you need to balance that quality with velocity, right? Customers are always looking for new features in the software that they're using. So now the teams need to move fast, right? They need to improve that product with new features, new capabilities that customers are asking for, but at the same time, maintain that level of quality so you're not breaking things once those new features get deployed. And then again, causing angst for the customer and the users, right? And then lastly, collaboration, right? So especially today with the things that we've dealt with for the last 2 years, the product teams, the development teams, the security teams, they're all decentralized, right? They're working from their either small offices, their home offices all around the world. And it's really hard to collaborate. So having a place where teams across the organization can actually see the same data on the same platform makes it easier for these folks to work together quickly and efficiently. And when you look at organizations who are doing this well, right? So, when you look at what we call DORA metrics, and these numbers are the latest from last year's State of DevOps report from the DevOps Research Assessment Group, right? They've been doing a survey for the last 6 or 7 years of different organizations in their software development delivery processes and teams within those organizations, and have come up with these 4 key metrics around really breaking down into velocity and quality metrics. So it's really deployment frequency and lead time, and then change failure rate and mean time to recover. So when you look at those organizations that are doing really, really well, they're called the elite performers in the report. They're actually deploying over 900 times more than medium to low performers in their survey. They're also deploying, or they also have a lead time that's 6,500 times faster, right? From lead time to commit to deploy than other organizations that are shown as medium or low performers in that survey. Now flip that velocity and balance it with the quality. They're actually high performers or elite performers actually recovering from incidents 6,500 times faster, but they're also deploying, their deploys are only breaking changes 3 times lower. So I guess the whole point of these numbers isn't for you folks on this webinar to strive for these numbers. I think it's 2 things. One is, first of all, get some kind of a baseline of these 4 metrics. Understand how your software development process is working from a deployment frequency and the lead time numbers, but also from a quality standpoint with your change failure rate and your mean time to recover. Just start getting those numbers and get a baseline. And that way, from that baseline, you can start improving those numbers where they need to improve. And again, I'm also not saying you need to be deploying 973 times faster than your competition or other organizations in the market. But I am saying, get to the numbers that make sense for your organization and your teams in your marketplace for your products. Without these numbers, you're flying blind. So getting these numbers and then having a path to improve these numbers over time will make you an elite performer in your own right. So when you look at software development, again, we know it's complicated and it's really fragmented. You have different teams responsible for different tasks in the process, but also using different tools. And that creates really a lot of difficulty in getting visibility into your software delivery process, right? Because now you have to be logging into different tools, getting the different data, cramming it all together, making sense of it all, and then actually getting it into a state that makes sense and is presentable and people understand. And that's really hard. So with that lack of visibility, it just becomes really difficult to understand how your software development is progressing or not, right? Your deployment frequencies could be going down and you don't know it. Or you may say, hey, we're doing great from a deployment frequency, but the quality may be suffering, right? Without the visibility, by getting this data and these analytics across the different tools into a common set that makes sense to you so that you can read it and understand it, again, you're flying blind. So what we do here at Sumo Logic with our software development optimization solution is we are that platform. We are able to ingest all the different data sets from the different tools in your organization used by the different teams. We're actually able to enrich it. We normalize it, we correlate it, and we're able to present it in a way that makes sense, it's easy to read, and you can look at it and understand where you are today, where you need to go, and see how that improvement happens over time. And basically, with that, being armed with that information lets you deliver features faster with that level of quality that you need to have when it gets out to your customers. So you have that improved reliability, but also that improved security. But again, having that common data that the different teams in your organization can get into in one spot means that you're all on the same page. You can work together more efficiently to understand where issues might be happening, where pipelines are breaking, where PR pull requests might be taking too long, and fix those issues so that your software development and delivery process becomes more efficient and you're deploying faster with high quality and you have happy customers. So let's get into the demo. So I'm going to hit on a bunch of different things. So within Sumo Logic's platform, there we have what we call the SDO, or the software development optimization solution. And there's a number of dashboards. The first dashboard is our high-level DORA metrics overview. And this gives you a snapshot view of your software development and delivery process across the teams based on all the data coming in from the different tools. So, and this is a demo environment. This is Sumo Logic internal data, but you can see from a Sumo Logic perspective, we're deploying 411 times. Our lead time for changes is, just over 100 hours. Our change failure rate is pretty good at under 9% or even under 8.5%. And it's taking us less than 30 minutes to restore any outages that may have been caused by either changes being deployed, new features being deployed, etc. But this gives you, in a snapshot view, just the high level metrics, right, of how your software delivery process is going, so that you can now benchmark it and then understand over time if you're improving or not. Now, a lot of DevOps folks and software development leaders have asked, what about the pipelines? I want, having those high level metrics are great, gives me a general idea of how we're doing from a software delivery process, but I want that one click down into pipelines. So the pipeline overview gives you that visibility. It gives you that information that you're looking for to see what the health of your pipelines are. So you can understand what the execution trends are over time and how many executions are happening. You can see any services in the pipeline services that are having issues and you're getting alerts. And you can break that down into the critical alerts. You can also see deploys and what were the statuses of those deploys. Were they successful or failed? If they failed, why did they fail? And then you can get more detail by looking at the last 10 failed deploys and actually go into the commit. Okay. You can also take a look at your builds and the status of those builds as far as successful, failed, aborted, or unstable. And then look at the last 10 failed builds. And then you can change the time frame here if you want to, all the way down to 60 days to the last 24 hours. And then also looking at pull requests. You can see which pull requests were created, which ones were merged, but which ones were declined. If they were declined, why were they declined? But also look at the number created. If a PR request, if a pull request is sitting there too long, that's a bottleneck, that's a blockage, that's preventing work from flowing and slowing you down and slowing down the velocity of your software delivery. You might want to figure out what were any pull requests that had a long time to close and figure out why. It could be just, it was a manual review that just got missed. And so that's something that you can address with the team. And then also issues. How many issues popped up as software was being created and deployed? Where the issues were done, which ones are left to do, and then which ones were completed. And then you can actually see an issue trend. And then also look at the top 10 issues that took the longest to close. Again, this is something that you can do as a retrospect. Why did it take so long for that issue to close? Was it too large? Maybe it could have been broken out. Maybe you didn't have enough resources to work on it yet. Again, these are things that having that visibility helps you become more efficient so that you're delivering better software faster to your customers. So now let's do a deep dive into the different DORA metrics first. So you can actually do a deep dive into your deployment frequencies. You can see your average deploys per week. You had over 1,000 events. You can check out the deploys by repo, right? And which project was being done. And you can do a 1-week comparison to see which ones failed, which ones were successful, and why. And then you can do some trending over time. And then your success versus failed deploys, you can see certain spikes. You might want to understand why those spikes happened. Again, having this visibility helps you have that data to make better decisions in your software delivery process. From a lead time perspective, again, having that one click down from the high level DORA metrics, you can see what your lead time is for the team. And then you can designate based on your definition of what is elite, high, medium, or low. You can then make sure that those flags or those thresholds are implemented here for time. And you can see from a Sumo Logic perspective, we're pretty high and our average lead time and median lead time, but our maximum lead time is terrible, right? You can also check it by team. Which teams might have longer lead times versus others and why? Could they be working on bigger projects, or maybe that project is too big and you want to be able to break it down into scope it into smaller bits for the team to work on in order to get the lead time up, but also you're deploying smaller pieces faster. And then you can also just look at your repos with the slowest lead time, your average lead time by environment, and average lead time by repos. Again, All these things give you that insight, that information that helps you deliver software quicker, but to a level of quality that your customers expect. Let's go to mean time to restore. So again, as here at Sumo Logic, we have actually a very good time to restore service. It's just under 30 minutes. And again, you can see certain services are spiking with the purple and the blue. So we probably want to look into that a little bit more as to why that's happening at certain times. And then from a change failure rate, again, you can see we have a really good change failure rate of just under 8.5%. You can see what services may have had an incident if a change was deployed to that service. And then you can also do comparisons over time. If Loyalty Engine or DB Engine seems to constantly have alerts over 2 or 3 weeks, again, it's probably something you might want to look into. And then here, although it's pretty shallow, you can see that the change failure rate trend is going up a little bit. So we probably want to nip that one in the bud before it gets out of hand. All right, and then the last dashboard I want to show you on the Dory metrics is team level metrics. So we all know today that there are multiple teams working on multiple projects in microservices environment to get features out the door for an application or set of applications, right? And that means one team is dependent on another team to get their work done so that their work can move forward. So this actually gives you that visibility into how teams are doing. You can actually see your average active development time. So how many hours is it taking the teams to develop software or the code that needs to be deployed? How long is it taking to review and merge that code, and the average time to deploy it? And if these numbers start going up, you can start figuring out what teams are causing the bottleneck, right? Because as teams start working and issues start popping up for a particular team, that's holding everything else back for your team. So having this visibility as a developer or development team manager gives you that insight into, hey, I need to plan for my team. I need to understand what work is coming, but more importantly, what work was I expecting for my team to be working on? And now it's being held up by team A or C. And I need to go figure out why that is. Again, maybe the project is too big, it wasn't scoped properly. Maybe they had pipelines that were broken, builds that were broken. Maybe their CI/CD platform went down, right? But again, this helps you as a developer and a developer team manager understand how the other teams within your software development organization and product organization affects you and your team and your deployment time and your velocity and quality. So getting this deep into team metrics will help you and your team become more efficient, but also enable more collaboration for the other teams across the organization, right? You can see average lead times by team, right? You can see there was a general incline or increase over so many days, almost about 3 weeks or so, 2 weeks, and then it dropped a lot. And so something happened here. Maybe a team got held up. The issue got resolved and it went straight down, but now it's going up again. So again, why is this choppiness happening? What's going on? And this gives you the power and the information to go talk to the other development teams or development team managers to figure out how can you smooth this trend out in your favor from a lead time perspective. All right, cool. So now let's do a deeper dive into the CI/CD pipeline. So we actually provide monitoring into your CI/CD pipeline, right? So because if there's issues with the pipeline, there's issue with the builds, and then everything else down the road for deploying code and software gets held up. So we actually provide, by ingesting data from your CI/CD pipeline into SDO and Sumo Logic's platform, you can start seeing, okay, within what pipeline, right? What alerts did I have? Which ones were low? Which ones were high? Why were they high? I can actually start accessing the logs and the error logs to start troubleshooting and figuring that out. I can also start looking at, okay, what service has more alerts than the others and why? So looking at the recommendation engine, you probably want to start looking at these logs, but also talking to the folks who might be responsible for the recommendation engine to figure out what's going on there and what the issue is. You can also see the different teams. You've got a security team, analytics, backend, et cetera, and how many alerts they had and they had to resolve. You can this is for the last 24 hours. So you can see the last high priority alerts that were flagged, the services, the team responsible, and the priority. And then you can go right to the PagerDuty alert ID and to find out more detail. And then you can also see what alerts were created versus closed and how that's trending over time. And then also, again, if you remember from our time to restore service, we saw spikes, right? And again, it's the same spikes. It's the DB engine and database engine, right? That seems the same, the spikes. So dispatch is here. Again, something that gives you an idea of where the issues are and who to talk to figure out what's going on here so that you can keep work moving and getting features out to your customers in a timely fashion. From a builds perspective, where we can do some monitoring on the builds, you can see how many total builds there were, the results of those builds. Again, 2,700 failed. That might be something you want to look into. If it's an anomaly, you can see the builds by service and the builds by team. And then also what builds failed versus succeeded. Again, your failures are higher than your successes. So something that you might want to look into since it's trending that way for the last 14 days. And then you can actually get a breakdown of the last 10 failed builds and get right into the build number in the pipeline. And again, figure out what's going on here, where the bottlenecks, where the blockages, what's causing work to stop so that you can get it resolved and keep your team productive and getting code out the door. Let's see, we'll go to deployments. So from a CI/CD pipeline perspective, you can see we have 169 deploys. You can see your results of successes versus failure. You have slightly more failures than successes. You probably want to dig into why over the last 24 hours. And by environment. So it looks like the production environment probably is the culprit that might be contributing to the more failed. But again, here you have your one-day comparison, your dev, your core platform, and your DB engine, again, had to fail. Your pre-production had your failed. Again, right? And we saw spikes in this in the last screen. So again, you can see how it's all correlating together, and each screen lets you do a deeper dive into the issues. You can see your deploys by repository and what happened there. Your deploys by service, and then the 10 last deploys that happened. And were they successful or failed? And you can see how it trends over time. Again, you have periods of high failure rates versus success rates. And again, it looks like it resolved itself. So, but again, something you just may want to keep an eye out for in the near future. And then issues. So from an issue perspective, this lets you really understand the tickets, right, that have been submitted and how many were opened, how many were created, how many were closed, but how many were reopened and why. And then so 4,000 issues that were reopened, that's probably something you might want to look into. Again, why did it have to be reopened? Was it closed improperly? Did whatever issue get fixed, break again, things like that. Again, the status, was it complete? Was it done? Is it still left to do? What's left to do? And the type, you get a lot of service requests and you've got a small amount of bugs, which is good here. And then your priority. So it looks like there's only one high priority, but you still have about 10 that are major. So again, and you may want to understand where the progress is here. And then what project are they assigned to? You can see obviously help desk has most. You can see the top issues that took the longest to close. Again, if this is an anomaly to you, it's probably something to look at. And then what are the latest issues that have popped up over the last 24 hours? From a pipeline stage perspective, you can see what was the execution rate between a master deploy and master build test. You can see the stage execution count and the failed stages and where. You can see the average pipeline duration. How long did the build take? So not bad, but there were 24 master build tests, regression tests. And then the average stage duration in seconds. Again, a regression test taking the longest. And then you can actually see the top 20 slowest pipeline stages. Again, if things here pop up as an anomaly to you that you're not used to seeing, or just seems out of place, you have the data to go talk to somebody, contact somebody, talk to someone on your team to figure out what's going on, troubleshoot it if you need to, and get it resolved. And then lastly is our pull requests. So by bringing in either your Git data, your Bitbucket data, again, you can break down your pull requests by a number of different either services or projects or team to figure out what's their status, how long do they take to close, are they sitting and waiting too long, why are they waiting too long? Because again, the wait time creates bottlenecks and blockages that slow things down. Okay. And then since we have about a minute, I'm gonna see if there's any questions. Okay, no questions. All right, I'm going to go a little further because I want to show some you folks that we actually have an integration with Atlassian and Jira. So from an Atlassian, so if you don't have Sumo Logic, but you're using Atlassian, which millions of developers are doing and development teams are using, we actually have an integration with Atlassian. It's right in Atlassian, meaning if you're using it, you don't have to go log in somewhere else. You can stay in Atlassian. And you can get some basic information of your software delivery process right from Atlassian and from Jira. So you can see what's happening with builds, what builds failed, the builds over time, what was successful, what was failed. So here is nice, right? You've got a very high success rate versus failure rate, your commits over time, and then your pull requests over time. Rejected versus created, which again seems pretty good here. Your open issues by component, and then your created versus closed issues, right? So you can see new versus completed. So the completed is higher than new, which is great here. So this team is staying on top of things pretty well. You can also look at any OpsGenie alerts or PagerDuty alerts. Again, your Bitbucket builds. So again, this is very focused into Atlassian tools and that tool data. But again, it's in one platform. You don't have to go anywhere. You just stay logged in. Let's see. And then we can provide high level door metrics for data coming from the Atlassian toolset. So you can see your average lead time. You can see repos with your slowest lead time, and then your average time to restore, your deployment frequency, your change failure rate, and lead time's taking a little bit to load. I apologize. But again, if you're using strictly Atlassian tools, you can go right from Atlassian to this platform and get your door metrics based on the data coming from those solutions. You can trend your deploys over time and your change failure rate over time. Here's our lead time, and you can see, unfortunately, our lead time is going up. So there's something there that probably needs some investigating just to find out what's going on. And then from a Jira perspective, you can get kind of that 1 or 2 clicks down into the Jira solution itself and the teams that are using it, and get some detail. I want to hit the overview first. So from an overview perspective, you can see that in the last 24 hours, 5 issues were created, 31 issues were closed, 3 were reopened, and there's 16 in progress. There were about one with the highest priority, and then 1 in 4, at a medium priority. You can see the issues by type. So what was a request, a task, a bug, and a change request, and the components that they affect, right? Salesforce versus an app. And then what projects, who's responsible, right? Who's taking on a project? So help desk versus the IT business and the app dev team. You can also see issues in progress by person, and who closed those issues and who opened them or reopened them, sorry. And then you can see any issues by priority and how they're doing, how they're progressing, and how they were closed. All right. Quickly into the issue detail. So you can do that from that overview. You can get 1 level down. You can see, again, the issues that were created versus closed, and anything new that popped up. You can actually see the top 10 issue creators and top 10 issues that took the longest to close, issues that were escalated and reopened, anything that's unassigned. So if any of these are high priority and they're unassigned, then that's a big problem. And average time to close the issues by the project or the project team. What are those issues that were reopened? Who's assigned to them and the type? And then we'll go to the recent issue changes. Again, so this is really specific to folks who are using Jira. If you're a developer or developer team manager, and you really want to understand what's taking up time in yours and your team's day around issues, that particular around Jira and what they're working on. Are they working on the right things? If not, then this gives you the information, the data to make that decision, and maybe kind of shift resources a little bit to make sure the big things are being done that need to get done. This is just a list of recent changes over time of those issues, right? It was a service request closed, it was done, complete, it was assigned to the help desk, or Daniette's on the help desk, right? And then sprint events. So this gives you an idea of what's happening in your sprints, right? So a lot of companies, right, they're on 2 or 3 week sprints, right? And as they block a time to get stuff done, this helps you understand how many sprints were created, which ones were deleted. So you might want to understand why a sprint was deleted, and then which ones were closed and which ones were started, right? So what work is getting done, what work has started, what new work is coming. Okay. And then lastly, we're just going to hit the user events. And this gives you an idea of basically Jira users, right? So how many were deleted, how many new users were created, how many Jira users were updated, the users created over time, who that person is on your team. So you want to make sure that you got the right people assigned to the right Jira instance, right? And you want to make sure if anyone's leaving the company that they're taken out, right? Because that's a potential security issue. Anyways, that's it. So I went a little over. I want to thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone at Sumo Logic. I personally can be reached out at mbaldani@sumologic.com. Happy to answer any questions for you. And I'm just going to do a quick question check. Nope, nothing. So Ali, I appreciate you staying on, and everyone else, take care. Have a great day.